Wanted to talk a little bit about the tragedy that occurred today in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where a civilian was shot by an ICE agent, or we believe to be the person to be an ICE agent. And we're coming to a point where we've got to stop and we've got to look at the division and the adversarial nature of what's going on in our society. ICE agents are trying to enforce the laws of the United States as passed by the Congress. These are the laws of our land and the laws of our nation. Because certain states have deemed themselves to be sanctuary states or sanctuary cities within such states, they feel as though they can openly disregard federal law. And this has been allowed to go on for years. So now the current administration is looking to address a lot of the migration that had happened during the last 4 to 5 years. And a lot of the migration was uncontrolled. So they're trying to find people who, they're not here legally. They shouldn't be here under the rules and the laws of our nation. And ICE is executing its charter and mission to find these people, take them into custody, and put them into removal proceedings or deportation and removal proceedings. Today, we had a tragedy occur where, according to open source media, ICE vehicles were moving through an area. One of them reportedly kind of got stuck because of the bad weather in that area. So ICE folks are doing their jobs. And from what I understand, there was a crowd of so-called protesters that surrounded them. They were in the area. And then someone actually moved their vehicle into the road and blocked the movement of the ICE agents. The ICE agents, a few of them get out of their vehicles. They walk over to confront the person in the vehicle who is blocking the road. The driver has some words with the ICE agents, who there were two of them which appeared to be on the side of the vehicle. One appeared to be standing to the front of the vehicle. The individual driving the vehicle blocking the road then appeared to accelerate, tried to leave the situation very quickly, and appeared to strike one of the ICE agents and drive straight toward another. And again, this is from the available video and the available discussions from the open source media. One of the ICE agents, it appeared to be the ICE agent in the front of the vehicle, drew their weapon and opened fire. The weapon fire struck the driver, and it was reportedly lethal. The vehicle came to a halt a bit down the road, struck another vehicle, came to a halt. Tragic situation. I'm not sure as the post-shooting events mature how this is going to turn out, but I have a couple of ideas and comments based on my previous experience as a law enforcement officer. ICE has had a hard time over the past several months with agitators, following them around, impeding their movement, throwing things at them, calling them names, trying to stand outside their hotel rooms, making sure they don't get any sleep, just generally being provocative and adversarial. What I'm looking at is comes a point when it's no longer just protesting. It crosses a line when you start throwing things, when you start impeding the movement of federal law enforcement officers, where it's no longer just a protest. In some instances, I think these people, the more, you could say, hardcore or radical people, they actually seek confrontation with the ICE personnel and or other law enforcement personnel who are supporting or assisting ICE. The opposition seeks confrontation. They try to goad the ICE agents into these situations where there'll be a fight, there will be physical interaction, or as seen today, there could be some much more severe consequences. So let's talk a little bit about the situation when something like this happens. Of course, all the ICE personnel will be separated from the working environment. They'll be interviewed. The shooting review team will investigate the situation to see if it was a use of force within established DHS, ICE policy and practice. You'll have a shooting review team will come out and collect evidence. They'll look at physical, forensic. They'll collect video, audio evidence. They will go around and do interviews to get eyewitness accounts, and they'll conduct a reconstruction of the situation, and they'll look to see, was there a reasonable application of deadly force in this instance? Now, I will tell you, just in general, now don't quote me on this because I'm not a lawyer, but I remember deadly force policies because we had to sit through many briefings. But here's, in general, deadly force can be used when a reasonable person could reasonably feel that death or serious bodily harm was present for themselves or others. They can justify the use of deadly force. So I will say this, an automobile is a very powerful, deadly weapon when it's used as a ramming implement, if it's used to run over humans. An automobile is a deadly weapon. So from the perspective of these ICE agents, they may have felt that they were going to be run over. Again, I'm speculating. We'll have to wait and see what the investigation shows. But there will be a review. They will come out and see whether or not this shooting and this application of force was within policy, within scope, and they'll see whether or not the actions taken fall under operating policies and practices where DHS and eventually the Department of Justice will likely get involved to make sure that this agent who shot was operating properly and did the best he could in the situation that he was in. One of the problems I see, though, that creates these tragic situations is the political division, the social division, the agitation that we see for the enforcement of our nation's laws, the irresponsible bickering and the just nonsense that comes out of elected officials' mouths when it comes to demonizing our ICE personnel for, again, enforcing the laws of our nation. I'm not sure what their objectives are and how ICE is conducting its business. That's not for me to say. But I do think our politicians could do everybody a service and just shut up. Just shut your mouths. Don't say anything. If you're against this, you can say that, you're not in favor. That's fine, but then shut up. But right now, there is so much toxic language and toxic rhetoric going on that it will move unstable people from an ideological position to physical action. And from that physical action, you have the possibility of a tragedy, which is what we saw today. We're going to have to wait for the situation to mature a little bit. But as you see on the screen, I'm showing the still of a blown up version of what happened when the one ICE officer was talking to the driver of the vehicle that was blocking the way. I'm not going to show the video because it would be considered shocking and offensive by our technical overlords. And I already had a video taken down one other time for showing a video of an event that was actually news stock video, but that's beside the point. What I want to make sure of is that we allow this situation to mature, that we look for more evidence, we look for the investigative outcomes, we take some careful evaluation of what happened. How about we have less emotion and less political wrangling? Now, the ICE folks have to deal with a lot of very, I would say, emotionally immature and unstable people who call themselves protesters on a regular basis. Now, I'm going to go up to another clip right here, and this clip will show you kind of what goes on for our ICE people.
Get back! Get back! Get back! Let go! Whoa! Kill someone else! Go for it!
All right, rules. Don't grab on to the law enforcement personnel. Do not grab their gear. Do not reach for their weapon. That's why this individual is exposed to a, I would say, crowd control agent. But this is the kind of behavior that our ICE personnel have to deal with. Last part of this conversation, here is the Minneapolis mayor, a man who on television wants to swear and act like a tough guy. He is a political pandering clown, and people like him are the reason why we have such division and why we have such social rancor right now, because he stokes it up. And I think this individual, again, as I said earlier, would do us all a favor by just shutting his mouth and saying, hey, we're going to work with the authorities. We're going to figure out the most fair and equitable and respectful way to get this done. Stand by. No, you can't do it. So here's a couple of things to close. Let's get some calmer, cooler heads to prevail on this matter. Let's make sure that we have less fighting, a little more problem solving, not problem making.